Hi, my name's Brian, and today I'll be reviewing the Seiko SAGA191 or SAGA191 watch. Please note that this video is going to be pretty long for a watch review, just because the radio synchronization and solar features of this watch is so cool. I've added a time skip, which you can see in the description of the video below. Now, the full name of this watch is the Seiko Radio Sync Solar World Time Chronograph using movement caliber 8B92. What this means is that the watch receives radio signals to synchronize the time, and I'll discuss my experience with using a radio sync watch and receiving the signal later in this video. First off, to set the time, you first want to select the time zone you're in by pressing the lower left button here, which enables the time zone mode, then using the upper and lower left buttons to select the time zone. Note that if you live in a daylight savings time zone area, you may need to set the time zone 1 hour ahead. In my case, this applies since I'm in daylight savings time currently and in Los Angeles. I need to set my time zone 1 hour ahead to Denver instead in order for the time to be accurate. What setting the time zone also does is select which transmission tower to look for to synchronize the time. For example, if you're in the US and you set the time zone to Eastern Standard Time, the watch will look for a signal coming from the US. If you're in Japan and you set the time zone to Tokyo, the watch will look for the signal coming from Japan. There are a few transmitting stations in the world, and since I'm in Los Angeles, my watch is likely receiving the signal from a transmission station in Colorado. Depending on where you're in the world, if you get a watch with the radio functionality, you may not be able to receive the signal reliably. In that case, you'd have to set the watch manually. I'll try to post a link regarding the radio signal towers if you'd like more information on that. Since this is my first radio sync watch, I didn't know what to expect, so I'll try to summarize what this watch will do, and it's pretty cool. First, this watch automatically tries to sync itself at around 2 to 4 a.m., and it'll only attempt to sync if the stopwatch hands are reset at the 12 o'clock position. You can also send a synchronization request on the watch by pressing this button, although I have not had much success because every time I check the reception status, the watch shows no signal. From what I've researched, this is a common problem in a lot of areas, and the signal is stronger at night and in the morning for some reason, and my watch does seem to sync automatically by itself, just not when I attempt to do like a manual sync during the day. When it does sync, the watch is accurate to the second. There's one thing I noticed about this watch that surprised me, and it seems that there's some energy saving mode on the watch. Since I left it in a dark area for a week, it stopped running after about 3 days. I thought the power ran out, but once I pushed the synchronize button, the watch ended up setting itself back. Another quirk I ran into while wearing this watch is setting the time. On most watches, you pull out the crown and turn it to set the date and time. On this watch, however, you still pull out the crown, but in order to change the time and date on this watch, you use the buttons on the left to move the hands clockwise or counterclockwise. Turning the crown does nothing. Here you can see I just pull out the crown, and when I press the top left button once, it moves the minute hand by 1 minute. When I push the bottom button, it moves it back a minute. If I hold the button, the minute hand keeps moving until I press the button again, and it works for both ways, as you can see. As you can see, I'm turning the crown here, but it doesn't do anything to the watch. Setting the date is similar. When I press the bottom left button, the date increments by 1 day. I can't go back though, so when I press this top button, it won't go back to the 31st, so I can only increment forward. Changing the day and time is a bit slow, as you can see, but since the watch usually syncs itself, you don't have to do this very often. To continue with the watch, it's a Japan model. It's not available in the US normally, and it retails for about $850 American, and you can find them online new for about $600 to $700. The watch usually comes with a bracelet, but right now mine has a blue leather strap on it, which works well too. The watch has a diameter of 43.6 millimeters, and as mentioned before, it has radio sync solar as well as a chronograph, tachometer, sapphire crystal, and 100-meter water resistance. The chronograph is nice as the hands sweep rather than tick, and I'll show you right here. And the buttons don't have a clicking sound or feeling. Instead, they have a soft but sturdy feel. The metal bracelet is not attached, but from the looks of it, it seems pretty sturdy and has a good weight to it. I've had cheaper Seiko watches where the bracelet was light and flimsy, but this one is very good. The quality and detail of this watch is quite a bit nicer than the standard Seikos, and what you would expect for a watch of this price. The dial of the watch is very nice. The blue is just as nice as it looks compared to pictures on the internet. The pattern and sunbursting on the dial also makes the watch shine. There's a lot of radio and solar watches that take a lot of space on the dial marking its features, which to me can really clutter up the dial, and I'm glad that this watch doesn't really have any mention of that, which makes the watch look very refined for a sporty chronograph. Also, while this watch is a bit large at just under 44 millimeters, it's not as large as many other Seiko radio solar watches, which can be 48 millimeters or more. And on my 6 3/4 inch wrists, which is pretty small, it still fits well, and there isn't any significant overhang on the lugs. The thickness is only 11 millimeters, which helps wearing it on a small wrist. As mentioned earlier in the video, where I'm located, the radio sync is a bit finicky and the signal often shows as weak. But the sync still works, and I did recently get a manual sync to work, but it takes about 5 minutes and you aren't supposed to move the watch. After having this watch for a few weeks, I think this watch is very interesting. It's great for people that like to tinker with their watches. If you want accuracy, this watch has it. If you want a long power reserve, this watch has it. And if you want a stunning and clear watch dial, this has it too. This watch is definitely versatile in features and more fun to play with than ordinary watches. I'd recommend this watch with the following caveats. First, you'll need to temper your expectations for the radio sync. If you're expecting the sync to work instantly and consistently, you may be disappointed with the radio technology. And you'll have to take the time to familiarize yourself with the features of the watch, since the crown and the adjustment of the watch is not like 95% of the watches out there. If those are okay, I think this is one of the nicest and most refined sporty radio watches out there. Thanks for watching my video on the Seiko SAGA191 and the overview of the 8B92 movement. If you found this video useful, please give it a like. Thank you.